everything goes, it's like going to that point.
Yeah.
But to accept that point has lots of ramifications. إن كنتم صادقين.
Let me explain. We can think of it this way. In this country, if you're conservative, right, both of you are conservative, do you have the same understanding of how it will be implemented?
No, absolutely.
So there's no need to look for something that is an impossibility.
Okay.
What we can do is, can we look at something which is objectively true, that is objectively true, regardless of someone's biases?
But where do we derive that objective truth?
That's what I'm looking for.
I know, but
And that's what you have to try.
who decides? Who decides what's the objective truth then?
That's why the only one who can decide is God, right?
Okay.
And so the issue is, first of all, the issue is God the existence of God, right? That's the issue here.
Do you believe in a God existence?
I don't know. I don't know if God exists. It's hard to make that leap because you're submitting a lot of.
What stops you from thinking God?
I just haven't been convinced really. I just haven't.
Based on what is your?
I don't think I have. I think I'm.
What is stopping? So I can address it because I've been in general.
Yeah, no, I understand.
What is your things that you think?
You know, like other things I've been convinced by, whether it's through persuasiveness or emotional. Sometimes it doesn't have to be logical. Sometimes it can just be an emotional thing. And I can't explain why nobody's ever sat down and explained God to me in a way that means, you know, if that makes sense.
I don't know if you've experienced this before, but you know when you are in a state of complete fear or something that happens, what naturally do you incline to?
Yeah, I understand. It's to look to something greater than yourself and like hope to something.
And this is something common with all human beings, right? And this is nothing to do with race. This is nothing to do with social construct, anything, right? So in Islam, we believe that is a natural fitna, there's that natural inclination that even if logically you know there's no God, but when complete fear comes to you, you look for God.
I mean,
isn't that some kind of sign for you that to question why is that innate in me and innate in every human being?
There's lots of very negative things that are innate in humans as well. You know, just because it's there doesn't mean it's right or
Do you call upon Superman at that point when you're really in this kind of...
No, and I don't think I'm beyond the idea of in a terrible situation, terminal illness hit me, something terrible happened. I don't doubt that God becomes a lot more of an appealing character.
Would you explain to us why do people don't call upon all this, you know, Superman, Spider-Man, all this, which like special extraordinary powers, for example, they can help. Why don't they call upon that? They seem to be, as the brother was indicating, they forget all of these things and their heart turns to the creator of everything.
I don't know.
Why?
Are humans...
It's hardwired.
Is it hardwired? Yeah. It's just the fear of a child. You know, if you're a child, they run to their dad, they look to somebody to protect them.
No, but if you're afraid, if you're afraid of something, I'm saying there are many superpowers out there, fictional or otherwise.
Because I suppose it's easier to write off Superman as not being real than it is to write off God as not being real.
If somebody, the point is this, if somebody doesn't think God is real, Superman is not real, why are they calling on God rather than Superman?
I mean, I don't think I make the point that God is real, I don't know.
So you just said something. I really want you to think about what you just said.
Yeah.
Really think about it.
Yeah.
So you said superheroes, right? Because of we know innate it's not real, right? But they don't call to that for support, but they do call to God. So innately, you know it's real.
I think it's just because it's easier to call something you don't like. There's a question mark about God. There isn't a question mark around Superman.
What is the source of the question mark? This is what.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it could be the fact that I grew up in a society where God is talked about a lot, and so there's elements of it in my like.
Have a think about it right now. Just I will give it a minute. Like, just have a think about it. There must be a deep down reason.
Because I do think humans are divine. Like, I do think there is a divine quality to humans. Definitely. You look at them and they are self-conscious in a way that animals never are. And they are thoughtful and they look forward into the future more so than animals ever do. They have a lot more of a
Okay, so are you saying, just to confirm,
Yeah.
there are certain qualities in the human being that these two factors cannot explain? Nurture, yeah, and nature cannot be explained. So it's naturally infused.
Yeah.
So it's not something that can be brought by nature. So
Yeah.
something divine.
Yeah, I do think there's something.
Then where does that divine come from?
I don't know.
What is the most, so as human beings, what do we do when we analyze things? We look for the best rational
Yeah, that's rational.
explanation. So honestly, what is the best rational explanation for this?
I don't think it's that. I don't think it's that easy though. I don't think
No,
it's that easy.
let me explain something. There's something probability, right? So if one thing happens, like for example once, and that's it, the probability, okay, it's coincidence. But if 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so we've mentioned certain things now, right? First of all, the innate human being, threat to God. We talked about rationally the best explanation, that nothing can come from anything, right? And now we're talking, there's special quality of the human being which the physical world right now cannot explain. It's something supernatural. Now, now it's different if it's just like one.
Well, it's a big leap. Yeah, I think it's a leap to go to supernatural, but I understand what you mean.
Okay, let's.
Because I don't know.
Okay, the thing about mind, language, for example, language can't be explained by evolution for survival. So when you start to put all these three together, so let's talk about these three in totality. What is the best explanation for all these things happening? Logically, the best. I'm not saying that you believe in that, but I'm saying from using your rational thinking, what is the best possible explanation?
It's too big to have an answer for you. It's too big. I don't know. It could be Islam, it could be Christianity, it could be anything.
No, I'm not talking about. So I'm not talking about religion. I'm not talking about religion. So let's put religion at the side.
As religion aside.
Because what religion is the premise that there's God, and God wants to communicate with the people. So we're not even talking about that side of it. So for these aspects, what is the best possible explanation for them to happen? Because there's only two. There's either all these things are coincidental and they happen just out of the sky.
I mean, it could have. I don't know.
But
it would be very tragic if that was the case, but it could be.
But we established before, something always has to come from something, right? There can't be nothingness. Nothing. 0 plus 0 doesn't equal 0, right? I mean, doesn't equal 10, right? So what is the best possible explanation?
It's too big of an answer. Like, I don't know what the answer is.
I'll be honest with you. I'm not saying this. I don't think you're doing it on purpose because I've been speaking to you. I think somewhere, I don't know where it is stopping you from looking at it clearly. Because when we were talking about things rationally, about objects, it's clear. And then when it gets to this part, to use the same understanding, is now you're confused.
I think it's not a matter of confusion, but I think it's a big step to take to confidently say, oh, it's supernatural, that's what it is. I think I'm a bit too guarded to say that confidently.
I think this is an interesting point you made. You know what it entails. All points to a creator of our cosmos, but to take that into your own worldview is a big step to take because it has consequences.
Absolutely.
That's what's probably stopping you from making that affirmation. Like, okay, I can understand, I can see. Everything goes, it's like going to that point. But to accept that point has lots of ramifications.
But I think it's also a matter of like speaking confidently about something you believe in, and if you don't 100% believe in it, there's no point in speaking to it as if it's fact.
Give you an example. Forensic science, I'm sure you're familiar with. When they look at circumstantial evidence, they may not have all the evidence, which is like, there you go, the judge was themselves there, so were the juries, right? They witnessed it with their own eyes when they were saying and so on. They look at all the circumstantial evidence, look, there seems to be a knife and he's got his fingerprint, the blood matches and so on. All this circumstantial evidence put together, they come to a reasonable position beyond reasonable doubt, right? That's what they call it. There's something about reasonable beyond doubt. It doesn't mean they're 100% certainty. They're not asking for 100% certainty.
Yeah.
And then they will make that judgment saying, okay, fine, looking at all of that. That's how even our everyday life, we live our life by.
Yeah.
And people are comfortable. If they're making a mistake, they will say, you know what, that's what all we had. We are saying the circumstantial evidence is so much that it is not circumstantial anymore. It is becoming obvious. For example, the sun, not having looked up now, the sun exists even if you're blind. The sun exists even if you're deaf. The sun exists. I don't have to prove to a blind or a deaf person the sun exists, because it's so obvious that you don't need to have this kind of like, I need to demonstrate to you with the heat and the rays and all these interactions between hydrogen and helium, whatever happens on the sun, for example. The air that you breathe in, do you see it? You don't see it, but you're quite convinced, likewise. You have never, tested the DNA of your mother and father, but you're convinced your mom and your dad is your mom and your dad. So we make these judgments or affirmation in our life every day.
Sure.
But when it comes to religion, understandable, we have to be very cautious. But we are not saying you believe in something which is nonsensical, unreasonable, illogical, incoherent, irrational. We're not saying any of that. In fact, we are giving you all of this, that look, it's something that's reasonable and sensible and logical and rational, intellectual. It makes sense. This is how you would say, yeah, so why am I not accepting it? So when the brother has explained to you about nothingness cannot generate anything, then we are in a big problem. And that problem is something always exists. That something that exists always without a beginning, it inherently possesses certain characteristics. You can't find things without attributes. There is no attributeless things, right? It will have attributes, characteristics, properties. So the thing that always exists will have inherent attributes, but these attributes would not be acquired by somewhere else, because there is no somewhere else. This entity always existed. So if that existed, life is part of the inherent attribute of that thing. Has life. What else? What else? Does it have power? Energy? Because without power and energy, how can we be here? The transformation that happened is due to energy and power. So it's the possessor of power and energy. How did it happen? Just like that, or did it will it? So it shows that this thing, entity, has to be conscious with a will. Because if there's no differentiation to make between, I want this universe to be like this with all these physical constants, the gravitational constants, the Planck's constant, and so on, this is like a conscious decision, a choice that has been involved. So you have an entity that is becoming so personalized, with a will, with knowledge and power and life. So such a thing, an entity, if you think about it, what is it different from when we are saying this is the creator, the sustainer, originator of this universe, who also has other properties? So we are not asking you to believe in something which doesn't make sense, because all of the things that we said about having a will, having power or energy, having life, and also knowledge or wisdom, because without knowledge and wisdom, how does these things come about? I mean, look how much knowledge and wisdom has gone into making that watch. This universe is more complex and more organized in its assembly than this watch. And how can we then say this is not demonstrative of knowledge or wisdom of God, of this entity? Yeah?
I think the fact that you can rely, whether air is real or not, or we have all these pre-assumed things like air exists, that's why we're breathing, all of those things. Even if those things weren't true, it's easy to live a life without having to think about it, because it's around us all the time, and we don't have to ascribe to a certain moral value, or we don't have to align ourselves with a certain kind of moral.
Can we stop breathing the air?
No,
we can't. So we can't avoid it. So likewise, how can we stop not acknowledging the creator when it's obvious like that?
I think it actually is. It's easy enough.
You can reject that creator, like you can reject the air is there, but you're consuming the air. You're consuming all that is provided by this entity, which brought into existence. So you're already in debt. The air that you breathe, the water that you drink, all of that is provided by this entity. So if you think about it, all your life and the continuation of your life, you are in debt to that originator. If you are in debt to someone, you either say, I'm thankful, I'm grateful, or you become an arrogant, stubborn individual saying, I don't have to. But a natural response would be, this is the natural human being, and I'm sure you are a human being capable of understanding all of these good virtues. Someone who's done something good to you, you'd be thankful. So how are we showing our thanks and our gratitude to this originator who gave us all of this, including our own life?
Can't that just be by being a good person? Can't that just be by being a good person and not having to worry about dogma and religion and structure?
So you agree we need to show some appreciation
To whatever it is.
right. So question now is, how do we show our appreciation? The way it is appreciated, or I think this is the way it's going to be appreciated. Imagine I want to show some love to this brother, and what do? I just punch him in his face. He said, because look, I'm a sportsman, right? And this is, I showed you one of my moves. You should be appreciating it. That's why I'm showing my love. And so he's not going to probably appreciate. I'll just give you a mundane example. So if we want to appreciate our originator, we should at least know how to show our appreciation. And the only way you can do that is when you know how our creator accepts our appreciation. What is acceptable, what is not. This is where all of these prophets and messengers comes in, who are appointed for this specific purpose. They become a spokesperson of this originator, who will tell us about this originator and tell us why we're here, what we have to do, and what's happening to us as we do things. Because we cannot speculate our own self and come to this conclusion, like you said, it's, how are you going to be sure and certain about it? By speculating about our originator. Prophets and messengers, they come with proof and evidence. We believe it is something that is in our Quran that...
But it is a belief.
When I say my belief, you will see my belief is actually, which is containing knowledge, that the creator, originator has sent prophets and messengers to all nations, honest all nations, because he's just. Otherwise, you will say, he is punishing someone without telling them what to do, what is required of them or not. So he says, in fact, the creator, originator, in fact says, he does not punish a nation until he sends them a warning, telling them what they're supposed to do and they're supposed to avoid. And he has sent to all prophets, all nations, a warning. So equating this together, now we realize why the belief in a deity or supernatural being who deserves our gratitude and reverence is so common all around the world. All around the world. Even if you go to, say, in an Amazonian jungle and you meet some people who never had any contact with the civilization, you will see they have some kind of belief about supernatural. Go anywhere. That's what they did to Australia. That's what they did. They found out. That's what they did to Native Indian Americans when they went there and discovered, how their belief system is, how their culture is. So the reason why it's so universal is because this message was universally given. Because God, our creator, our originator. When I say God, it's a term to refer to someone who is worthy of all our complete gratitude, full submission, full reverence. I can show appreciation to my parents, but the one who created me deserves more of gratitude and thanks than my parents. So that's what I mean by someone who is a God, a being who is given worship. This worship is all of your, humility, submission, your surrender, your love, your praise, your gratitude to the one who deserves it. No one else deserves worship. Only the one who originated everything. So it's so common everywhere that our Creator has instilled within us so that we don't have an excuse in the day of judgment, because there's a day of judgment. Does it make sense, someone who creates all this intricate, beautiful, organized assembly for no reason? Someone creates your watch, makes your watch, manufactures your watch, and actually it's no purpose at all. It's just simply there. You'd say, it makes no sense. It has some functionality, time, alarm, maybe a light, maybe a calendar, lots of different things, right? So you can see the purpose behind an organized, complex assembly. This universe shows this kind of complexity, and how can you then say there is no purpose behind it? So we need to know what this purpose is, and our prophets and messengers tell us what this purpose is, and this purpose is that we are not here to live our life like smoking a cigar and that's it, but to fulfill an obligation, a duty, to give our gratitude, our praise and our worship to God. If we do that, then there will be a life next life, we call the hereafter, in which there is everlasting life with no end, where there is pleasure, where there is joy and tranquility and bliss. But if you don't, and if you reject it knowingly, and you are arrogant and stubborn, then what awaits for you is not so happy. There will be torment and unhappiness and sorrow and something that no one wants to go. You don't want, even your enemies want to go if you had an enemy. Imagine you had an enemy, you would wish not even your enemy to go to hellfire, a place of torment. So the purpose of our life is not to find out the best course to go to uni and best work, to which job is the best, provides the best money and so on and so forth, best restaurant, best girlfriend or wife. No. Is to know the purpose of our life here and what happens when I die. So Islam provides all of these existential questions to the satisfaction of the human intellect. Everything else, if you were to question, you will see there are some confusions, there are some doubts, there are some inconsistencies and discrepancies. Islam is so clear, your heart and your mind together will appreciate and acknowledge and sync with this belief system. So we're not asking you anything different than what your heart and mind is already programmed or synchronized to accept. So when we say, the one who is worthy of our worship is the one who gave us life, you'd say, that makes sense. It's not my parents, it's not my country, it's not my nation that gave my life. It's the one who gave life to everything, or originated everything. So I'm not asking you something to believe in which is unbelievable. So when we say all it is required of you is to follow the guidance given by this prophet and messenger, the final prophet and messenger has come. That's the difference and distinction the brother was trying to make. Islam today is completed with the message of the final prophet and messenger, because mankind has come to a stage where the message can be universalized now, everywhere. Previously, it was a community with a prophet to that community. This community and the prophet was only responsible to that community alone. He was not responsible to people on the other side of the world. There will be another warner, another prophet, another messenger for that duty. So Islam came with the final message. It tells you there are certain things you don't do, and these are not good for you. And certain things you should do, because these are good for you. For example, to give you example from contemporary understanding, we are asked by our Prophet to fast intermittently, Mondays and Thursdays. Fast from sunrise to sunset. What is our experts in nutrition saying today? Saying you should intermittently fast, maybe twice a week. That's what expert advice is. So the Prophet, when he said this, you might say, oh, this is too much, but there is a benefit to you. The benefit people may not have understood in its full sense then, but we appreciate more and more now. So when the Quran says, for example, don't drink alcohol, don't eat dead meat, don't consume blood, don't eat pork, don't eat things that have been strangled by animals with claws and so on, you will see within each one of them, there is some harm being avoided by not consuming these kind of things. When the Quran or the Prophet or Islam says, for example, when you pray, you make ablution. You can see by making ablution, you're not physically cleansing yourself, but you're spiritually cleansing yourself to be in contact with your Lord, your Creator. So the do's and don'ts is not something like for someone else's benefit. It's for your benefit. It's for my benefit. So when we say we give charity, you know what charity does? When we give from our wealth willingly to someone who is poor, it purifies our heart by removing the greed. Greed. Do you know why people play the national lottery or other lotteries? It's the laziness and greed. Because they want to make easy money without doing some work. So much greed, I'm going to win. But Islam says, no, you work and you reap your results by working. And you would say, that makes sense, I'm a responsible person. I don't be lazy like a couch potato and then things comes to me. So being charitable is something good for you too. Not only good for the others, but good for you. So whatever you look into Islam, Islamic laws and do's and don'ts, you'd appreciate that actually Islam is not taking anything away from you. So when Islam says, don't fornicate, don't commit adultery. In today's society, adultery and fornication, the term is like What do you mean by that? It's so rampant. People are sleeping left, right, and center, right? And they don't even know who they're sleeping with when they're drunk. What does it do? So if you're a married person and start sleeping around, you are going to have a negative impact on your family, your wife, and your children. So by saying don't do these things, it's preserving the family unit, preserving the love, the bond, the care of your family, of your children. This is why it's necessary not to go and sleep around and committing adultery. Does that make sense?
You're right, yeah.
Yeah. So when we ask you to become a Muslim, if he hasn't done so already, we are asking you to submit and surrender to the will of the Creator alone. Not to any nation, not to any flag, not to any man or woman or any footballer or any superstar or any singer or any dancer or any musician. No one. The Creator of the heavens and the earth. To avoid and reject worshipping of one's desires or worshipping the creation, but to return to the worship of the Creator. And you do so by following the Prophet, the final Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in how to worship God. That's what Islam invitation is all about. Is that something that's difficult for you to accept?
I don't think it's difficult for me to accept, but there's a lot of religions that are very compelling. There's a lot of religions that are very compelling.
Okay, let's talk about those religions now. Let's compare.
Yeah, I understand. I can't speak to other religions with any great confidence because I'm not particularly involved in any of them anyway.
Okay, just give you some hints, fine, in terms of when you're comparing the religion.
Yeah, well, I mean, naturally, you're going to come at it from the perspective of Islam is the way.
I'm making a simple comparison which you can actually verify it. Verification purposes. So if a religion says there's many gods, whether they're 3 in 1 or 20 million, the idea of multiple of deities, which are absolute, is nonsensical, it's not intellectual, it's not coherent. Shall I give you an example why polytheism, in any degree, whether it's triunitheism or tritheism or many gods, imagine now there is 2 gods only. Absolute, meaning they have independently absolute sovereignty. God number 1 and God number 2. God 1 wants to lift this bag up to here. All powerful, I'm not able to do that, right? God number 2 wants to lift this bag up to here at the same time. All powerful, able to do that. Where's the bag going to go? I've generated a conflict of will. Where is the bag going to go?
Do you find that that can be said for 2 imams or 2 leaders in the...
That's why we don't have 2 imams in our country. In an Islamic political entity, there is only 1 ruler. Because that model works best. If you have 2 prime ministers, God save you.
Well, fine.
Yep.
And so you don't find that there's discrepancies across Islam in the way that it's preached?
In Islam, we have 1 Amirul Mu'mineen, 1 ruler who's supposed to. Currently, all these nation states have been created when they dismantle the Uthmani Khalifa, the last stronghold which was in Turkey in 1924. All of these are instilled by the regimes of like the Britain and France and others. That's why Muslims are all trying to work together to get back the Islamic system of where there is 1 leader, 1 ruler who will rule all the Muslim world, so you don't have all this confusion and weaknesses. The reason why people... That will happen. Our Prophet said so. Our Prophet even prophesies that this will happen where there will be a time when there will be biting oppressorship, kingship, and so on and so forth. We see that. But he said, but they will eventually come in a khilafa upon nubuwah, where there will be a rulership of Islamic entity or political entity upon prophethood, which is only 1. So, when we talk about the example of multiple deities which are absolute beings don't compromise. They are there independent and self-sufficient. So this bag either goes up to here or up to there. If it goes up to here, then God number 2 is not absolute. Failed. If it remains there, either way you can only have 1 absolute. If it goes up there, this God is not God. If it remains there, that God is not God. It's like if you're driving in a car with 2 independent steering wheels, you're on the right, I'm on the left, right? So I'm on the left, I'm taking it this way, and you're taking it that way. Where's the car going to go? I don't listen to you, you don't listen to me. I'm an independent driver. The car's not going to go either way, is it? So that's why the conflict of will demonstrate you cannot have more than one absolute being in reality. This reality tells you, demonstrates to you, look, it's sunny now, but it's not suddenly like the sun disappears because there's another God who says, I don't like the sun to be sunny. It doesn't happen. The whole universe that we're living demonstrates to us there is only one absolute entity in control. Not two, not more. Not more than one. Because otherwise there will be chaos and corruption and total disaster of this universe.
Isn't there though? Isn't there lots of corruption and disaster in the world? Because you say they're
Okay,
gods, you know?
so imagine now one creator says, I don't like this earth. The earth disappears.
Okay, well maybe they...
Other one says, no, I like it. I want it to stay. What's going to happen? The Quran actually gives us, you'll be surprised, the Quran uses examples for us to understand this. لو كان فيهما آلهة إلا الله لفسدتا. Had there been more than one ilah, more than one God, there will be corruption, chaos and ruin. And I was explaining that particular ayah of the Quran through examples. You cannot have this universe in this particular way it is working. So much control. It's not like the earth rotates one day this way, one the other way, and then it jumps about and so on, because that's what you expect, chaos. There is no this. It's all following a natural law that has been placed by the Creator. Everything's following. Everything seems to be going. Everything's rotating. Nothing's like suddenly stops rotating. Do you understand? Everything rotates. Everything rotates. Why isn't everything stopped doing that? So this is a law that has been already placed in this universe. So when we say Islam is the only acceptable belief system, all the other belief system, I've given an example of a polytheistic belief system, which you know rationally cannot be true. So what other monotheistic religion you're going to check then? Because now monotheism seems to be the only viable belief system which is open to our inquiry. Agree. What other monotheistic belief system? Judaism. We say, look, the prophet Moses was a prophet of God. We believe in that too. We believe in Abraham and Jacob and Solomon and Adam and Noah. Peace be upon them all. They were the prophets of God. So Judaism doesn't have something that we don't have either. Because we say these were the prophets of God sent to these nations. But what they did was they at some point rejected a prophet that came to them, Jesus Christ, the son of Mary. And then when Prophet Muhammad came, they also rejected him. So they rejected two prophets. All they have to do is now verify these two prophets as a prophet of God. So the idea of a concept of God should be similar because it's coming from the same God, this belief system. Christianity, there are Christians who are Trinitarians, there are Christians who are Unitarians, there are Christians who are Mormons, and Jehovah's Witnesses, different kind of belief system. But ultimately they believe in one God in some way. We're saying Jesus Christ was a Muslim. He was sent by the same one God that we are asking you to follow and believe in. Jesus Christ didn't come to people and say, worship me, I am God on earth now. He says, worship the one who sent me. So Christianity is simply the same way and belief system that I'm asking you, inviting you to, is something that they fell short of by mistaking their belief system and introducing falsehood within it. And rejecting also the prophet that came afterwards.
Last question. I think the Christians say that Jesus is God.
Some do, not everyone.
Okay, let me ask you one question. For Islam, because you said it's the way of that everything makes sense. So how is it that we, like people who are Muslim, are going to go to heaven? What is the ticket? What's the...
Yeah, so the way to go to heaven is to have the key to heaven.
What's the key?
The key is La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. That you worship none but God and you accept Prophet Muhammad as his messenger.
But if you are walking in a street and you're driving and you're with your son and your son has an accident, kills someone, yeah?
There are consequences.
You can't just say, okay, I forgive you. You're sorry? So you're
consequence.
So what's the consequence?
The consequences. So, for example, if you have killed someone accidentally, you can compensate.
That's in this life. What about in heaven? How can you go?
No, let's talk about this life first. Let's understand that. When you've done something wrong to someone, you have to make things right. But of course, the life that you've taken is not going to come back again because there's only one life here. So you cannot compensate by giving them life back again. So what you do is, the sin that you've committed, for example, by mistake, if it's intentionally, then you should be also killed. Life for a life. That's the equal recompense. But if you make accidental a mistaken killing of someone. There's a difference between murder and manslaughter. Yep. So you try to compensate. Maybe you say, the victim's family, fine, I'll try to compensate, give them blood money. Means, what would you like as a compensation for the life that's been mistakenly taken? Okay. The family might say, I forgive you, that was a mistake. Or they might say, we want this. They might say, we want you to be hanged and killed. Well, there you go. Then you'll face the consequence.
So now let's talk about, consequences. I agree with you. There has to be consequences.
Are you a Muslim?
No.
Right. So before you go into that, so let's understand about concept of God. Do you agree with the concept of God in Islam?
I keep with the concept of God. I agree with the concept of God in general.
No, in Islam. In Islam.
No, I'm not Muslim.
In Islam. The concept of God in Islam that I have explained to the gentleman here. What's your name?
Daniel.
Daniel and Mansur. What's your name?
Yusuf.
Yusuf. Do you accept that the only being worthy of worship is the one who deserves our worship? God, the creator, the originator, the sustainer.
Yeah.
Right. So, do you agree that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was the messenger from that creator?
No.
Okay. So, the question is not about God. The question is about identifying and verifying someone as a prophet and a messenger of God. Good. So, how do we, Daniel and Yusuf, how do we establish, what's your name, brother? Abdullah, come in. How do we establish a prophet or a messenger of God as a true prophet and messenger of God? So someone comes along on this, like this brother comes along and says, I'm a prophet of God. Are we going to simply accept his statement? He comes along and says, I'm a messenger of God. No, just because, no. So what would you ask and what would you demand? What would you wish to verify? What is it that we want to verify with? And let me start with Brother Abdullah. What is it we have to verify him to say he's a prophet of God?
So his book. So what evidence then?
Evidence, okay. The brother is asking for evidence. What would you like for him to verify he's a prophet of God?
I have to know his purpose, and all the religion has to make, every single part of it has to make sense to me. And fine, books is fine, it's their thing.
You want to verify that he's a messenger of God or not?
Yeah.
And now you're saying everything that he says has to make sense to you.
Yes.
Right. Do you understand quantum mechanics? Does it make sense to you?
If I studied it and cared about it, I would understand.
Have you studied it?
I haven't studied it.
You haven't studied it.
Yeah.
So if you haven't studied it, would it make sense to you?
Yeah.
Particles pop into existence from nowhere. Does that make sense to you? Does it make sense to you?
Does it make sense?
So there are certain things that make sense to you, but yet you demand everything that individual comes up has to make sense to you. You already bring a criteria which you're not truthful to yourself. You are using a criteria which you don't apply it consistently.
When you go to a doctor and ask him about something and he just tells you the diagnosis,
One moment.
it's nothing.
Daniel and Yusuf,
Explain to you.
try to focus on this one, right?
Yeah.
Brother Abdullah as well. What's your name, brother? Omar. Abdullah, Omar, Yusuf and Daniel, right? And this is Mansur. You want to establish everything says makes sense. Yet there are many things in this life you cannot make sense of it because you do not know everything. Do we agree?
You don't have the knowledge. You don't have the knowledge.
Because you don't have knowledge of everything. Then you need to modify your criteria. Daniel, I want to, don't feel like this is going somewhere because it's important that we all together, because I want you to become a Muslim and I want to understand your obstacles, okay? Because we say, the reason I said that, I'm going to slight tangent. The reason why we say that, Brother Abdullah was speaking to you from his warm heart because he wants good for you.
Absolutely.
Not that it's going to benefit him for some reason and that's it. Even if there was no benefit, he would still want good for you because the consequences of not worshipping our Creator, not fulfilling our purpose is so high that, as I said, even you would not want your enemies, if you had one, to go to hellfire. That's how bad the consequence is. So we want you to become a Muslim and save yourself from the hellfire. So we're trying to learn from you, and of course the gentleman Yusuf comes along, try to understand, how this is all making sense. The truth of Islam. So the Prophet to identify, it's not everything that says, everything that you are capable of understanding should make sense. Do you agree so far? then how can you say, if you said something, and you say makes sense when you know you don't understand everything?
Because if I want to understand, I'll go and research and know about quantum mechanics, and then I will say, okay, it makes sense.
Sure, are you going to research about everything and everything?
If I want to, if I care about it, yeah.
Okay, so look, let me give you an example. Okay, very good. So Daniel, this is one proof. Same time, the proof is in two ways. One is a proof of falsification and proof of affirmation. So generally it's understood to be a full proof through falsification test. You know, in science we try to give theories and give you the ways to falsify it. The Quran says, if this wasn't from our creator, God, Allah, that's his name, no plurality, no masculinity, femininity, and so on, so it's just unique name. If it wasn't from God, then what you do is go and produce a chapter or 10 chapters or one book like it in the way it is constructed. So Quran challenges people, like imagine Prophet Muhammad ﷺ came and said this. He did to people. This is the Quran which says, if you're in doubt, وَإِن كُنتُمْ فِي رَيْبٍ مِّمَّا نَزَّلْنَا عَلَىٰ عَبْدِنَا فَأْتُوا بِسُورَةٍ مِّن مِّثْلِهِ وَادْعُوا شُهَدَاءَكُم مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. If you are in doubt as to what God has revealed to his servant Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, then produce a surah, a chapter, a unit of the Quran, I call a surah, like it, if you're doubtful about it. But if you can't do it yourself, then seek helpers and supporters besides God to do this job for you. And then it continues that you will never be able to do that.
So you're saying if you can find a book like the Quran?
No.
What do you say?
It says, if you are in doubt that the Quran is not from God, this is how you can falsify it, by imitating one of its chapters, any one of its chapters. If you want to do 10 chapters, go ahead. If you want to do whole book, go ahead. Because different time, different challenges were made. So the least of them, the easiest, I suppose, is to produce one chapter like it, one surah like it. So this is what the Quran tells you, how you can verify him to be a prophet because it's unimitable, and how you can falsify the Quran if it was imitable. So then go ahead, go and study the science of, when I say science, the literature, the art of Quranic composition, and how the composition of the Quran is so inimitable that no human being, no jinns, the Quran actually challenges both. Jinn is another entities of rational faculty where they can understand between right and wrong. They do wrongs and rights, right? It challenges both. So if you think it's not from God, if you have some doubt, then go and do it. So this is exactly what I'm saying. If you're capable of doing that, go and study Arabic language, the Arabic of that time, and then produce something like it.
So the Bible also is a very good book.
Daniel, before you go,
Great to meet you.
Please read the Quran.
I will.
Study the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Very much.
There you go. Quran comes immediately after you. And next time we come here, if you are coming here, we can continue the discussion, right?
Absolutely.
Is there any question before you go?
No, perfect.
Did it make sense what I said?
Yeah, no,
any clarification needed?
No, I like it.
You take care, Daniel.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Take care then.
Yusuf.
So what's the Bible, for example, is also a very good book. There's nothing.
Does the Bible say produce something, book like it to make it false?
No, but I think that the Bible is a very good book.
It's not about being something very nice and very. It's about providing a falsification test in which you can verify or falsify something.
I can verify that the Bible is true. It's one of the most common. It's one of the most.
Can you provide a falsification test for the Bible that I can? If I apply that test, I can be sure it's from God or not from God.
What does a falsification test mean?
It's a test in which you can for example, you say, for example, look, I am the best, the speediest athlete, yeah, someone who runs. I can say, okay, let's organize a test of running. If you fail and you become 15th and someone else were faster than you, then I falsified your claim that you are the speediest athlete, right? So that's a falsification test. So if the Bible claims to be a book of God, what sort of falsification test does it provide that if we then were to apply it, we can say, okay, it's still applicable, so it seems like still it's worthy of calling from God. Or if I were to now falsify it, then I know it's not from God.
Every single thing that is written in the Old Testament, hundreds of years before God, is fulfilled in the New Testament when God came. About God.
Fulfilled.
Yeah. So let's say you have
more than
a prophecies
in the Old
Prophecies.
a prophecy from the Old
Testament in the New Testament.
Even Jesus was prophesying.
So okay, so you're talking about the Bible can be true. So if we find one prophecy which is false, the Bible is falsified.
Yes.
Okay, Jesus tells his disciples, to his people, that this generation will not pass, you will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven. Something like that. Did he come back within his generation? No, he did not. False prophecy, Bible is false. Very simple.
Sorry, say that again? I didn't get it.
Jesus Christ is reported to have prophesied that his generation will not pass until they see the Son of Man coming back.
Are you sure that's the context of what you're saying?
You tell me the context. Go ahead.
I'm actually
no.
to make the claim.
If you disagree,
I'm not saying I'm
no. I am asking you something. Look,
I can bring someone that's well more knowledgeable
then bring it then. Bring it. I am saying I do understand the context. If you disagree with what the context is, I'm willing.
Right?
I'm willing to listen.
Okay,
go ahead.
I'll go get someone that's.
Why don't you do that now?
I'm not saying. I'm not saying.
Okay,
I'm
fine.
aware,
So now, because you don't know, so now I've given you something to ponder that there's a false prophecy.
I think the generation is not meant about this generation, the people around me. I think it's humanity will not pass.
He says this generation.
Well, he says
You can't twist language and play your semantics.
no, you can, because the language that's written here is English. And
No, not
it
English, in
wasn't
Greek.
written-
In Greek.
Yeah, but it wasn't written in English.
The New Testament, which is in Greek, if it says about this generation, then you know it's this generation.
I can tell you lots of things. There's also in the Bible it says, and he got married to her, and then he knew her. Knew her.
No, we're not talking about knowledge,
having-
because knowledge can mean different things. I'm talking specifically about this and generation. I know what this generation means.
No, this
Okay, if I said this group, do you mean the group that is going to come 20 years later?
He didn't say this group.
He said this generation. So this generation is understood to.
Generation. What defines a generation? Like some people say millennials are like between like this year and that year.
He identified them, the people, the generation. For example, if I say this generation, you don't mean. Look. Let's read it. Try to bring it. If I say this generation, you're not going to bring a generation 1 million years later, because you think, oh, in my understanding, this generation means your offspring 1 million years later. That will be really going too off in your language usage. When we say this, we mean this.
I think it's very difficult to take one verse out of context.
It's not one verse out of context.
But I can ask you the same
giving you a prophecy which is false.
I can ask you another question.
Go ahead.
What is the ticket to entry to heaven in Islam?
I told you.
What is the? You don't tell me. So let me.
What did I say?
Let me ask you. I'm someone and I am with someone else and I'm lying, telling lies. Yeah. So if I go to heaven after I tell lies, then that means God accepted me just because I said I'm sorry? He can just accept me because I said I'm sorry? That means he's not righteous, correct?
Okay, 1 second. Is God forgiving?
God is forgiving, yes.
What does it mean? Does he demand payment in forgiveness?
He doesn't want payment in forgiveness.
Right. So forgiveness is he just let it go.
The payment was paid already. That's
Now, understand forgiveness first. Forgiveness is if, for example, someone steals, forgiveness is not that you give what's stolen back.
Yeah.
That's payment.
Yes.
Forgiveness is just letting it go.
Yeah.
Is God able to forgive without payment?
God is able to forgive, but also God is righteous. So important.
24:34. Yeah.
Is God able to forgive without payment? What was the answer?
Without payment to him, yes, he doesn't want payment to him. But
No, not payment to him or anyone. Simply without payment.
You said something. You said if you hit someone, kill someone, there's a consequence. Correct or not?
Yeah.
Okay. Can God forgive this consequence? Say, forget it. Don't worry about it. You come to heaven and forget the consequence. Can you say that?
God, as I said, can compensate. So, for example, the person whose life was taken away unjustly, God can reward him in the hereafter with millions times better, that he would not even think that this is something, the pain that was inflicted or the loss of life by not having been with the family for the next 10 years or something. He will have more, or she will have more.
Who died?
No, in heaven.
Which person? The person who killed? Or the person who died?
The victim. The victim.
The victim.
The victim will be compensated.
Okay, the victim will be compensated.
Compensated.
But
So
if
now-
God accepts you after
about
you've
the
done
person
the
who
wrong
committed
thing,
this, the
the
wrong
person who
thing?
committed.
I'm saying the person who is guilty can be forgiven if they sincerely repent,
Yeah?
or if God doesn't forgive them,
Then God is not righteous.
Wait,
Then God
wait,
is
He
not
does
righteous.
that.
wait. God, when someone commits a sin, when God forgives them by saying, that's it, is God being unrighteous?
Yes. If he does that without.
So he's not forgiving.
He's forgiving and
He's
righteous.
forgiving.
No, he's not forgiving. Forgiveness is simply letting it go.
Is God
Without-
righteous? Is God righteous?
No, one second, one at a time. Let's understand forgiveness, because I think you were a Christian. Good, I knew that. Christianity don't believe in true forgiveness, and I will demonstrate that right now, God willing. They don't believe in true forgiveness. We will establish
From
that.
your understanding.
True forgiveness is when you've done something wrong, right? Committed a sin or a mistake or something wrong. You've harmed someone, do something wrong. It's simply letting it go without asking for a compensation or some kind of what is it called, payment and so on and so forth. Simply saying no. For example, imagine now I hit this brother, and he says, "I forgive you." Now he's not saying the only way he can forgive me is by punching me back. That would not be forgiveness. So, can God forgive better than this brother Omar? If, for example, I commit a mistake against him.
What if he said no? I don't.
One second. If I commit a mistake, a sin against him, and he says, "I forgive you," without asking anything from me, like he doesn't want saying, "You know what? You have to give me £10. You have to give me this compensation. You have to say sorry and so on." He simply says, "I forgive you." Can God forgive me better than Omar?
But what if he doesn't forgive you?
I'm asking you, can God forgive better than Omar?
Yeah, he
Because
can
you.
forgive you better than Omar.
How?
How? I'll tell you how. Because he says there is a price to be paid for the sin, but I will carry it for you. So the
That's
price
not
is
forgiveness.
there. That is forgiveness.
No.
That is forgiveness.
So if I, for example, you gave me £1,000 and says, "Give it to me next month." Next month came, I said, I can't give it back. I don't have friends, I don't have banks, nothing. And he said, "Okay, I'll give you another month." I come again, and he realized I would not be able to repay back. And he says, "Well, you know what? I forgive you on the condition that you give me the money back." Is that forgiveness?
I don't understand. Tell me what it is.
True forgiveness is not asking me to give the money that I borrowed from him.
But why wouldn't you give it?
One second,
Him,
one
that's
second.
him, the person
Wait,
you-
let's understand forgiveness. If he demands payment, say, "You know what, but I want money from your friend. I want money from the bank." That's not forgiveness, that's payment. A true forgiveness, which Christianity doesn't have, is when he doesn't demand any payment back. He says, "You know
I'm
what?
talking about him. I'm talking about God.
One second." He says, "You know what? I have more than £1,000. I'm a billionaire. I haven't lost anything by this £1,000. It doesn't affect me in any way." So he will simply forego the minute loss. What you think to you is so great, to him is nothing. £1,000 when you have £1 billion is nothing. God, you cannot diminish anything from him. He's so rich in his attributes of everything. Nothing can be diminished by doing something harm against him. You cannot add to God's glory or take anything from him, because he is Al-Ghani. He is rich. He is self-sufficient, as-Samad. So
Why did he
God,
cast? Why did he cast out of?
one second. So God in Islam can forgive, of course, without asking any payment, just like Umar. But in Christianity, can he?
So why did God in Islam cast Adam out of the heaven? Why didn't you just forgive him?
I can answer that, but I want to continue that
This is
discussion.
You're talking to me about a person to person.
No. I'm asking you, in Christianity, can God forgive without payment?
Yes.
Yes, he can.
How?
Without you paying.
The debt
No.
has been paid.
Any payment by
He
anyone.
literally says in Luke chapter
Any payment by anyone.
Yeah, but there's a way he can do that.
No, any payment by anyone.
Yeah, he can forgive without any payment.
So if you make a mistake, a sin against God, he can simply say, you're forgiven.
If you forget by your whole heart, you go,
Why?
Can he do that?
Yes, for a reason.
For a reason.
Because he pays the price for it. How can he pay
Are we
the price?
speaking English?
Yeah, we're speaking English.
We're not speaking English.
No, I'll tell you something.
I said without anyone paying anything.
But then he wouldn't be
there's
righteous.
still
He
a
wouldn't be
difference.
righteous.
The question is not about righteous. The question is about
But God is
forgiveness.
righteous. That's the thing. You can't just let it off.
The question, one moment. The question is about forgiveness, and you are conflating.
We have the concept of forgiveness.
Wait.
Completely different.
Is there a difference between forgiveness and mercy and justice?
Yeah.
There is. So I'm not talking
And
about
righteous.
good. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm simply talking about forgiveness. Do you have a forgiveness in Christian concept of God, in which God does not require any kind of payment by anyone?
I need to say something. I need something very important.
Yes, in the
I maybe kill his son. Someone of his relative. Okay. And he forgives me, no problem. Yeah. But he has the power to forgive and not forgive in his thing. Okay. But I'm saying, if he wants payment for it, yeah. Let's say he wants payment, yeah. Who am I to forgive you for hitting him? Do you know what I mean? Why? Why would I forgive you for hitting him? You haven't sinned against me.
Brother, one second. Let's understand this.
You haven't done a like. Let's say, for example, you go. I can just kill him and say, "Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that." Is that enough to get forgiveness?
How does that answer my question? Can God forgive without any payment? Explain.
Yes, he can forgive.
Explain.
He can forgive.
Can he forgive without any payment?
Yes, he can.
Forgive everyone he wants.
So he doesn't want any payment,
In the Old
either
Testament, I'll tell
him
you something.
or his son dying on the cross.
The Old
Oh, there is a
Testament, before
price
the coming
for-
of Jesus.
A price is a payment. Do you not understand?
There is a price.
Right. Can he forgive without any price?
In the Old Testament, the Jews,
But he will not be righteous,
offer
yeah.
sacrifices before the coming of Jesus. They used to offer sacrifices for the atonement of their sins.
So answer my question now. Can your God, in the concept that you have, forgive without any price?
Yes, if he wasn't
But if he
righteous.
does that, he wouldn't be just because there's a price.
We're not talking about just, we're
It
talking about
doesn't
forgiveness.
matter. He can't
Yes,
just
if you-
Christians,
be
I'm
unjust.
telling you, one thing I've noticed
But
is this.
he can be both.
One second.
That's why he's
One second. I notice when you're talking about potato, you talk about bananas. When I talk about forgiveness,
No, that is-
you are unable.
Forgiveness in Christianity.
One second.
I can tell you.
The problem is when you talk about something, you talk about something else. So if I say, "What is your name?" you say, "I live in Wales."
No,
I'm not asking you where you live.
You don't understand
One
forgiveness
second.
in Christianity.
I do understand. What I am asking you is stick to forgiveness. I have given you a concept of forgiveness in Islam, in which he doesn't have to demand any price.
Forgiveness.
Listen.
Finish.
No price. God forgives without price.
And this is the case with
God
us.
forgives without price.
who pays the
So
price
now,
for someone
so
who-
now,
If I committed a sin, I
do you have a forgiveness better than this without a price?
If someone steals from me, I want.
One moment. Can you tell me, do you have a better concept of forgiveness without a price?
That's not a good. That's not a good forgiveness form. Forgive without a price. That's not.
Do you know what forgiveness means?
I do.
What does it mean?
It means that I have a right with you, but I leave it. Yeah. But that's if it's my right, I can
Okay,
do
guys,
that for
let's
you.
all kill
Because
each
it's my
other,
right.
don't forgive
But
us,
if it's
it's
right, I can't forgive you for his right.
God forgives.
He has to forgive.
God's forgiveness. So God to forgive, he simply cannot say you're forgiven, and that's it. Right? So he doesn't need a price.
No, he has paid a
the
price.
price has been
Which one?
paid.
He needs a price or he doesn't need a price? You're in
You tell us what is the price?
literally contradiction.
What
What
is
is
the
the
price?
price?
What is
Yeah.
the price?
No, the
What's the
question.
answer? You tell us the answer.
What I'm saying is, the moment you introduce a concept of price, it's no longer forgiveness. It's a very, very bad type of forgiveness.
Condition. Why is that?
I'm telling you,
Condition.
a true forgiveness
Let me just
is
explain.
simply letting it go without demanding a payment back.
That forgiveness is
Imagine
only
someone
Answer.
saying,
I have the right
Now
to.
I'm saying
Is that the answer?
this. I'm answering. In Islam, this is the true forgiveness of God.
this
In
is what the
Christianity,
Islam.
in Christianity, there is no true forgiveness. It's all about payment.
One question.
Yeah, sure.
You sinned against him. You did
That's the problem.
I'm talking about
hurt
God's
him.
forgiveness, not mine.
Okay, you hurt this guy, yeah? You
No,
hurt him.
forget that.
But I forgive you. It's
No,
okay. Don't forget
I'm talking
about
about
it.
God's
I forgive
forgiveness.
you.
God's forgiveness.
Yeah, for God wouldn't say.
Hang on. God's forgiveness. Do you believe?
Yeah, I don't think God will say, okay,
One
don't worry
second.
about him.
Okay, one moment. Do you believe now? Let's go to another attribute. Do you believe God is just?
Yeah, God is just.
Is justice a concept in which you punish the innocent or punish the guilty?
Guilty. Punish the sin. The sin has to.
No.
The debate.
Do you punish the guilty or punish the innocent?
Guilty.
Guilty.
Yeah.
Right. Jesus Christ was punished on the cross.
Yeah.
Was he innocent or guilty?
Innocent. Thank you. Okay, but let me explain one
There's
thing.
nothing to explain.
No, let me tell you.
No. There is nothing to explain.
innocent man? Why
I
did the innocent
Yusuf, stop.
die for everyone's sin?
Yusuf, there is nothing to explain. So now you are
innocent man?
in a belief system which is you're contradicting yourself in terms of how.
Give me a question.
I don't need to speak to you any further.
even you,
because
in your-
you agreed, you punish the guilty, and Jesus, you agreed, was punished, and he was innocent. You can't have it both ways. You live in contradictions.
How is he just?
Sir, with all due respect.
So he doesn't forgive. He
Wait,
forgives without punishing?